So that was really exciting. And as you can tell from the agency side we just heard from and from the media company MVPD side, there's a lot of change happening. Convergence, digital, linear, TV, all coming together, but it's hard. And there's a lot of things that we have to address, and we need to do several things to make this a reality. We've heard a few people say, I wish it could happen tomorrow. We said some say it may take us 3 to 5 years. What we want to talk about next is, what are the things that we need to do as a group? We all here together. We'd like to figure out how we can rise the tide for all the ships in the ocean. And with that, I'd like to introduce Tim Castree, who runs North America for Videology, who's going to give a call to arms for the industry. Thank you, Tim.
Excellent. Fixing video advertising, a call to arms. Hopefully, I haven't overpromised on the title of this presentation. We'll find out. And actually, you're about to learn, if you're not on your toes, if you're texting, Jason, feel free to keep tweeting at Castree, that's fine, but everything else. This is the interactive portion of proceedings, so get ready. This is going to be pretty simple. I'll explain the interactive mechanism by which we're going to engage in 1 minute. It's binary. You can do it. It would be kindergarten proof, this one. So I'm going to ask you to jump in and help. But first, I want to set a little context. You know, Videology, as Scott mentioned, has built its business on the principle of convergence, that basically all video advertising would digitize and ultimately converge, and a screen would be a screen would be a screen, and we'd start to talk less about television and digital and various formats, and we start talking about video, and the infrastructure to support that would grow and evolve over time to make it more addressable across those screens and formats over time. Our whole business is built on that premise. On the road to that, we've believed and continue to believe that television advertising is going to continue to take on some of the features that we're used to seeing in a digital context. So, you know, the ability to apply behavioral targeting, you know, the ability to bring software and data to help automate workflows, the ability to guarantee new and different kinds of currencies, the ability to target more addressably, you know, from the household, and then to find audiences in more interesting ways in the linear feed, and to repackage inventory in the linear feed to help advertisers get better at strategic audiences that they're trying to accomplish. So we felt like these things are going to continue. And likewise in the digital space, we really knew with video that digital video is going to take on many of the features of television, principally driven by the volume constraints. Unlike display and search, you can't create more volume. There's a limit to the volume, and that creates a different dynamic in terms of the way that market's going to evolve. So you see us move to more TV-like currencies, the age demo guarantees, you know, looking for price, you know, a guaranteed certainty, you know, upfront volume commitments and price guarantees. The whole US marketplace last year, if we look at video, the proper definition of video, less than 1% was traded real time in an auction, 99% was traded on a futures basis. So the notion that digital video and everything's going to take on this kind of bidding feature, we've never believed is going to be true. So while these things are happening on the path of convergence, and each of the inventory pools as they exist today taking on some of the features of the other, nothing's perfect. There's problems and challenges in the road. So what I want to do here, and this is why it's an interactive session, because I actually don't have all the answers, but I have some perspectives that I want to share. So I'm going to share with you just 5 of my thoughts about how we think the industry collectively can do a better job of fixing video, making it better. And then you're going to tell me if you agree with what I'm saying at the end of each point that I make, and there's 2 simple ways you're going to do that. You're going to give me a hell yeah. Can I get a hell yeah? Hell yeah. All right. Or you're going to give me a hang on. And so that's the way we're going to take the poll. I'm going to do it one more time with a little more emphasis. Can I get a hell yeah? Hell yeah. Can I get a hang on? Hang on. All right. The second piece of interactivity. If you're a hang-on and you really want to make a contribution to the conversation, I welcome it. So if you've got a hang-on and you want to pop your hand up, Landon's there with the microphone. I'd love to hear your perspective. We'd love to hear your perspective. So feel free to say hang on, pop your hand up. Now somebody better actually do it. And Landon is going to come and find them, and we're going to hear your perspective. So the rules of engagement seem clear enough? All right. Game on. Hell yeah. Thank you. It's great. So let's talk about these 5 thought starters I have about fixing video advertising. The first one for us is getting the basics right. What am I talking about? Obviously, I'm talking about fraud and viewability in the digital video landscape, right? It's an ongoing problem. It's troubling to us that the industry has not been able yet to conform around some basic standards and agreements about measurement methodologies and approaches that make it easier for us to take to customers the idea that we are bringing you an impression that is going to be viewed by a human such that it has the opportunity to actually improve your business and drive ROI. So that's the first perspective. And while there are a lot of people working hard on this in the space, our view is that the industry is not evolving and conforming fast enough to high enough levels of standards. And among advertisers, it's starting to diminish their confidence in the digital video ecosystem. So while we say good on us all as an industry, a lot is happening, a lot's being done, we work tirelessly on it. More needs to be done collectively to drive and conform to some of those standards. There's a huge role for clients to play in this. So I think the big thing that is not talked about enough is some of the things that drive bad behavior is this ongoing push on pricing that makes an advertiser think that a $6 CPM is really good. Let me tell you, if you're getting a $6 CPM, it is probably worth about a third as much as the $18 CPM that you're getting, and that is probably can be explained by the delta of the quality of what you're getting, the viewability of what you're getting, and the humanness of the end user. So I think it's really important for us as an ecosystem and for the marketers to come to this and say this constant downward pressure on price at the expense of quality needs to change, and we need to start to really come together and say, let's define some standards, let's accept the price increases that might come with that, let's get to an actual fair, comparable metric of what constitutes a valuable video impression. So that to us would be goal number one. Can I get a hell yeah? Yeah. Can I get any hang-ons? Hang on, thank you. We've got to hang on.
The industry doesn't exist in a vacuum, and over the years we've developed metrics for benchmarking, for planning, various tools that were built to handle that, and each of the different constituents has a different perspective on how that ought to be done, and also what kind of expense each agency or network would incur trying to get to that. So I think that means that the idea of a fast-moving consensus is unrealistic. And maybe the answer lies in a different approach. Maybe there's a single person or a very small group. There's a famous quote where Henry Ford said, "If I listened to my customers, I would have built a faster horse." So the idea is that as a group, I would think that we're never going to get there. It's going to take a few brave souls to go out and push it and come to an understanding, and then the sheep will follow.
So you're suggesting it may not be solved by the consortium, it may be solved by some disruptors, and we need the disruptors to step forward and set the pace for everybody else.
They will have to, because it will not happen by itself, and if it's going to evolve like some sort of Darwinian experiment, then we're looking at decades and changes in genealogy.
All right, thank you very much. Excellent. Perfect. Second, this might sound tactical, but I'm really interested in us coming together more aggressively as an industry and more quickly to monetize OTT and VOD inventory. Aggregate TV viewing has held very steady over the last 5 years, and the shift in premium video consumption to VOD and OTT has not been anywhere near achieved the level of adequate monetization that it deserves to, based on the opportunity that exists inside those inventory pools. And so I love YouTube, I really do. I love YouTube, and I think they're a very important part of the ecosystem, but we are making it far too easy for them to take share with all this disruption in TV viewing and the reporting of the erosion of TV viewing. A lot of it, especially for younger consumers, is simply moving to these under-monetized formats. According to our great partners and collaborators at Adobe, 32% of video consumption last year for 18 to 34-year-olds took place on connected devices. These are the places that we need to start to take advantage of those audiences and monetize inventory. Otherwise, We are simply, kind of accelerating the leakage and the share outside of the television part of the ecosystem, and there's incredible amount of quality and value to be garnered from VOD and OTT inventory pools. So that to us would be, short-term job number 2 is how can we capture those audiences in those channels where they're moving to with better monetization of this inventory. Can I get any hell yeahs?
Hell yeah!
Can I get any hang-ons? All right, we'll call that consensus. The third one might be interesting. I'm not going to say what you think I'm going to say. We need to break down the digital walls. I'm not talking about the walled gardens of Facebook and YouTube and Amazon that people love to bemoan, and I love to bemoan them as well. I'm talking about what I call the accidental walled gardens that agencies are creating through their trading structures and technology strategies. And so Doug talked a little bit about this morning, the goal of unduplicated reach across platform. My belief is there's a lot we want to do on the actual walled gardens, but the accidental walled gardens, it's within our control to do more to drive cross-platform optimization and delivery of more optimized messages to audiences across all the various inventory sources that exist. But right now, if you think about the setup of many agencies, and even though it's coming together over time, yes, but you've still got FEP being bought on fluidity with TV dollars managed by a team over here, managed often through Excel and the phone and email. You've still got endemic sites and big strategic digital video partnerships often being managed by a digital specialist team. And then you have a lot of long-tail digital video trading happening out of the trading desks and programmatic buying units within the agencies. And I can assure you, the planners might understand how reach and frequency is going to accrue across those properties in concept at the planning stage, but when it reaches the point of execution, I can assure you nobody in the ecosystem has a true idea of how on any individual campaign reach and frequency is building from one digital inventory set to the next, and obviously taking into account what's already happened or happening on television. So for us, we talk a lot about the challenges and problems of the walled gardens. My view is the platforms and the technology exist today for us to stitch this together. We're still in a world where the agency structure is not moving fast enough, evolving fast enough, so structure is driving strategy. It's not quite the right strategy, and our view is as a collective, we can do more to get our house in order before we simply turn to Facebook and Google and say break down the walls. There's a lot we can do to break down the walls that exist in our own ecosystems today. So that to us would be point number 3. Can I get any hell yeahs? Tepid hell yeah. It's like, that sounds like, can I get any hang-ons? There's got to be a hang-on unless there was a more enthusiastic hell yeah. No one's willing? All right, here we go.
Coming from the agency side, I would say there's only so much I need to tell you. We're not really partners. That's something we say when we sit down to lunch right before we negotiate to make things seem nice. But there's a pie of money, and we have to split it. And I want to keep as much of my client's money as I can, and you want to get as much as you can. There are various ways that these decisions are made on the agency side. Some of them are good and smart and need to be protected. Some of them are sort of half-assed and dumb and need to be protected because you wouldn't want people to know it. But there's a question as to what kind of transparency anybody on the buy side needs to share. And the same thing happened, talk about the last year's upfront with the walk through the walled gardens. There were any number of ways to define a car intender depending on whose garden you happen to be sitting in.
This is the point.
So there was nobody sharing exactly how they were defining it either. So as long as people perceive that they have a financial advantage by keeping that information close to the vest, there's not much motivation to break down the digital walls.
We understand that that's true for the people who are holding their own data tight, so a Facebook, a Google, a YouTube, but there's the everybody else strategy, and our argument would be that yes, you can have a YouTube and a Facebook strategy, an Amazon strategy. You also need an everybody else strategy, and there's no reason for the everybody else to be building 100 other new walls in addition. And that's our view, is that technology exists to, at least as a starting point, to kind of bring together the everything else that's happening across FEP, premium video, long tail video, ad networks, DSPs, etc. There's no reason for that to exist in silos
I think
today.
there again, you would have to actually spell that out very clearly. This is what we want to know. This is all we want to know. This is what we don't need. Keep that to yourself and make people comfortable with the benefits of sharing. Otherwise, people are worried that even if they can't think of a reason or a nefarious way that you could use it, they'd rather be safe than sorry in the trades.
Thank you very much. Excellent. Number 4 was discussed on the last panel. I do think I'm in the camp that says we have an opportunity to reduce TV ad loads. But let's talk about a perspective on why. You know, one of our core competencies is in the area of video yield management. We care a lot about it. Video yield management for us has 2 simple features. We've talked about one this morning, which is the ability to repackage inventory or directly target it so you can find the strategic audiences you care about more efficiently in the way that you target. So there's a targeting version of achieving that. The second one, though, for us, though, is the ability to achieve the advertiser's KPI with fewer impressions through more holistic management of the video portfolios that exist. And we see this all the time because we get called in to do a lot of case studies. So I'm not here to do an infomercial for us, but we see many instances where on various audience or strategic target guarantees, there is an enormous amount of waste that goes into delivering those impressions, and there could be those impressions can be delivered a lot more efficiently and effectively. The net sum of those excess impressions are really just cluttering up the extra ad load, the environment, and the publishers not monetizing them effectively. So in either case, though, we're talking about less impressions to achieve the objective. And this, to us, is the ultimate promise of cross-channel addressability. So when we help media owners to achieve what they want to achieve with less, essentially it's up to them what they do with those excess impressions. They could go resell them because video is a very constrained world. So they could go and sell them and make more money from another advertiser. Our view is that over time, the goal should be to take those excess impressions out of the ecosystem and over time, in responsible ways, grow the monetization, grow the yield, and reduce the ad load to make the ad-supported part of the ecosystem more competitively with the subscription-based version of many of this content that we're getting. So it'll have that benefit. Everyone talks about that, make it more competitive with Netflix and OTT. The second benefit it'll have, which we think is the virtuous circle, is when the advertising that does get aired is appearing in less cluttered environments, we know it's more effective. You know, we all have a lot of studies around that. So that our view is the dual advantage of those 2 things over time, and I'm talking conceptually, of course, you know, over time, that should create enough opportunity for yield creation for publishers that in effect could help, and I'm talking in TV as well, that could in effect help us to reduce ad loads. At a time in television when it's gotten more competitive than ever, since 2009, ad loads have increased on average by a little over a minute an hour. So we're actually heading in the wrong direction at the moment. Targeting addressability for video cross channels is an opportunity for us as an industry to help reduce the ad loads, improve the consumer experience, and lift the performance of the advertising that does air. So that's a perspective that I have, that we have. Do I have any hell yeahs? Do we have any hang-ons? We've got to hang on? Okay, you got 37 seconds because you work for Videology. If you're an external guest, you'd have 90 seconds.
Yeah, I'm sorry to monopolize from this corner of the room. I think the key is if we could tie in attribution, we could actually work out a little more smartly how, if you increase or decrease the ad load, what is the actual impact? I think we're sort of making assumptions that reducing the ad load will have an impact, but if you can actually trace it to sales, that would make it more interesting. So I think it would be a great A/B experiment to trace it and actually track it down to attribution before we jump to that conclusion that reducing TV ad loads makes a difference.
I love it. And as our head of TV strategy, it's now on your KPIs, Richard. So great stuff. I think that's a great idea. Well done. Good. Thank you. Finally, people have been talking about this. We've got to stop the theft. So the industry's been talking a lot about ad blocking. According to an article in the Wall Street Journal, $22 billion was lost last year to ad blocking. I was shocked when I saw that number. I didn't believe it, to be honest, but it was pretty well verified by, I think, Adobe, another partner, and it was printed in the Wall Street Journal, so it must be true. Even if it's high, it's a lot of money being lost to ad blocking. And from our perspective, from my perspective, ad blocking is simply a form of content theft. There's two ways to get access to great premium video content. You can buy it with a subscription, or you can support the advertising that goes with it that allows you to have that content for free. You know, I've been on, and the industry has definitely not taken a strong enough collective stance on this. There's been so much hand-wringing about it, but not enough action is my opinion. I think it's our opinion. And specifically, it's the two ecosystems of Apple and Google that are really kind of at the moment that are kind of pushing out a lot of this, the support for this ad blocking software. So that's our view. I've sat on many panels where a lot of kind of industry colleagues have said, well, if we just fix the consumer ad experience, they won't need to block. If we just get the right message to the right person at the right time, then the need for blocking will go away. But I think we all know that that's not true. I don't believe that's true, and I don't think millennials, if millennials can get premium content without the ads for free, they're going to take it, no matter how good the ad experience is. That's just what they're going to do. So they can if they will. So I believe the way to stop this is through more aggressive action from the publishers who are ad-supported in the premium content ecosystem against the software creators and the distributors of those apps. And I mean, if this was the MPAA, there'd be lawsuits. If this was the recording industry, there'd be lawsuits. I think as an industry, we're sitting by and allowing $22 million of our collective inventory and revenue to get basically taken out of the ecosystem and demonetized by a few people in the ecosystem who make their money in different ways. So that's my view. And I know that Google is happy to distribute, an app that allows them to block content on your, block ads on your content. I'm pretty sure if I put my YouTube ad blocking software in the App Store, it probably wouldn't get through and downloaded for my YouTube ad blocking software. So I definitely think, as an industry, it's time to kind of step up and put on our big boy pants and take on the perpetrators more collectively of the content theft that's really grown up quietly and slowly beneath us without us paying enough attention as an industry. So that's the fifth thing that I think we need to do, is protect the economic interests of the industry as a whole. Do I get any hell yes for that? Do I get any hang-ons? All right. That concludes my session. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate your time.